So I don't really have like a funny clip to start this off. I just have this particular clip that I had nowhere else to put, and I figured it'd be fun to show. And guess what? Even despite all that, we still didn't dunk. Damn it, blueberries. Welcome back to another TDT video. What we do in this particular series is we take exotic ideas from the community and we feature them, put a little bit of art to them, and discuss them. I'm actually pretty excited about this time around because normally when I go through these exotic ideas, I go through and I kind of cherry pick exotic ideas that I particularly like. Some people have said I'm biased, and I said, yeah, that's kind of the point. But this time around, it's going to be a little bit different. I went through and I sorted by newest, grabbed a comment, and sorted by most liked and grabbed a comment. So these are entirely either rated by you guys or random, or, you know, just people getting lucky. I did exactly the same with my Patreon comments, and I grabbed the first, literally the first exotic idea that I saw on Discord. So we have a truly random sample of exotic ideas. Will they be good? Will they be bad? Probably somewhere in between. Let's go ahead and start ourselves off here with an exotic idea from the YouTube commentator by the name of Harris, with the exotic idea of the webs of the eight-legged queen. I already had to cut that name down because that's a little long, but the exotic perk is called Blessing of the Queen. Being hit by a melee unleashes a burst of webbing that obscures vision and disables radar. Hold grenade to convert it into a web wall grenade that causes the above effect when someone walks into it. So I cut this down just a little bit just to make it a little bit easier, but the effect is, exactly the same. I wanted to make sure I preserve all of the ideas this time around so we can point and laugh if they are terrible, or, commend them if it's a good idea. By the way, all this art is either from another game or linked in the description down below, so, feel free to check those out. This particular idea is actually kind of all right. It's not bad. I'm not really in love with it, but it does totally work. It's basically like the Hunter's version of the ACT-0 feedback fence. Instead of it dealing damage and being something that you can build up by doing melees, it's something that is just a blinding and disorientating type effect, which is definitely a Hunter type thing to do. And instead of being able to build it up for, that Fury conductor like we have on the ACT-0, this is something that you can convert into a grenade, which kind of neat. It's kind of like a mock blinding grenade, like a trip mine blinding grenade sort of deal with a bit of slowness attached to it. Sort of similar to how like Bottom Tree Arc Strider's melee would work, I'm imagining. So like a concussion type effect. So you know what? It's not bad. It would be all right for a PvE situation where if you are in an area where there's a lot of melee things nearby, you could do that blinding to them. Assuming Arc 3.0 has any type of synergy with blinding, then that could be something that could work with this as well. Yeah, it's not bad. Exotic armor pieces are kind of hard to put your finger on in terms of like power balance and where they're going to sit in the meta, but I don't know. Hunters, let me know in the comments. I think this is pretty good. Let's move on to the next idea. All right, so this next one is from our Discord. This is from Denovi, I believe I'm pronouncing that right. This is the Hand of the Tower. This is meant to be a sort of like time warping-esque type sword with the exotic perk called User Time Lost. Holding reload will create an oracle at your current location. Tapping reload again at any point within the next 10 seconds will blink you back to the oracle. Right off the get-go. That is insanity. The reason for this being just absolutely insanely strong is that anytime there is a situation where, let's say, an Atheon's fight, or anytime there is a teleportation type effect, you could effectively say no to that effect because you could just plant one of these oracles down and then teleport back to it whenever you wanted. I do kind of see where they're going for with this, where it's sort of like a, like a rewind type effect, which is neat. But is it really necessary? Is that really adding anything into the game? Even if this wasn't broken, like let's say that you had to have like line of sight of this thing, is that adding anything into the game that would be beneficial? Sure, an escape tool could be nice, but doesn't that kind of like defeat the purpose of good positioning and such? Like if you had a free get out of jail card, a literal get out of jail card, wouldn't that kind of hurt the overall experience? I don't know. Let me know what you guys think, but let's talk about the rest of the exotic perk just in time. Gain resistance while your oracle is out, teleporting while at low health or when you've taken enough health to be critical. Begins health regen when you teleport back. So, that's fine. I mean, it makes sense for the rest of it. That's nothing game breaking. But really what this makes me think of is like a more powerful Worldline Zero. And probably what this video is titled is, "This is why not everybody should be a game designer." this is definitely it. I know I'm ripping your ideas apart. It's not just this particular person. Don't give them hate or anything. I hate saying negative things towards exotic ideas because I feel like a jerk, but you know, I feel like it's gotta be said. You know what I mean? So now we're coming into the section where we feature some Patreon exotic ideas. And by the way, if you want an increased chance just because there's fewer people there of getting your exotic idea featured, and you want to help support this channel out, keep it going, check us out on Patreon. The link is in the description. So this is from again, I feel like I'm gonna have to say something negative, and it's got to be in front of a bunch of people, and it's from a Patreon supporter, so it feels really mean, but I'm gonna say it anyway. This is from an exotic supporter by the name of DST Fun. Surely this is meant to be a joke. I can't think of this not being a joke. The exotic perk, and it only has one. I've gotten on people in the past of having too many exotic perks. This has far less of that. This is the 2 steps behind. Its exotic perk is called Maybe Next Time. Banishes high tier combatants for 15 seconds or teleports guardians hit with this weapon back to their nearest spawn point. So basically, this weapon is a linear fusion, a kinetic linear fusion that does not deal direct damage, but rather is sort of a put somebody in baby jail for a little while. I can't imagine that that's not ridiculously strong though, because being able to essentially just put a champion on hold for 15 seconds while you clear out a room sounds ridiculously strong. Like, effectively, think of it like this. Imagine if you could freeze a champion for 15 seconds just by shooting them once, even if it took multiple hits. Freezing a champion for an extended period of time, even if they're 100% immune, is insane, because you're just dropping the DPS that the room is going to be dealing to you and making dealing with that target much, much, much easier. This is an insanely powerful idea, and yes, I don't think this would ever, nor should it ever exist into the game. And it didn't even need a second exotic perk. Even though this weapon doesn't deal damage, yeah, that's really, really strong, and it only gets stronger the more people that are running it. Come on, Patreon viewers, I thought you were supposed to be better than that. Thankfully, not all of them from our Patreon is trash. From Castle Romeo, again, the highest rated that we had here, only 2 votes, so you guys can vote on those comments a little bit more, I suppose. This is Old Ahamkara's Orbit. By the way, they made comment at the end of the note here that orbit is a term for the structure in your eye socket, which I gotta appreciate the play on words, that's pretty clever. The exotic perk is called Song of the Herald. Surrounds the Ward of Dawn in siphoning tethers that siphon health. Enemies inside your ward are suppressed, and the Ward of Dawn persists after death. Now, this does have a problem of having like a couple too many things at once. I feel like we could maybe knock off 1 or 2 things, and this would still be an interesting idea. I really like the idea of turning the Ward of Dawn into a weapon in and of itself, like having not a full tether effect, like, you know, like a shadow shot, but sort of similar to like how the Child of the Old Gods work, where it'll slowly deal damage over time, make them slightly weaker to things nearby, so it doesn't just blow all of the other like Helm of Saint 14 out of the water. But it's interesting. I really like this. I think this is really neat. Could work in PvP as well. Again, it's, you know, it's already a super, so it's going to be a little bit on the stronger side. Enemies inside being suppressed is, again, similar to the Helm of Saint 14, blinding enemies. This obviously would just be that suppression. In fact, heck, I could even see an argument for the Helm of Saint 14 suppressing targets already, but that's neither here nor there. Really interesting exotic idea, all around solid stuff, whereas other stuff I've seen so far has been really strong. This feels like it's right on the edge. Titans, let me know in the comments if this is something that you would run, as I don't do bubble that much, so I'm legitimately looking for some feedback. And now for the featured exotic of the week, which is completely meaningless because these are all picked at random, but fortunately, this is actually a pretty good idea. I have seen a lot of people propose similar ideas. To name a few, an exotic that has a different effect depending on what subclass you're running or what element it is currently tuned to, some type of javelin type weapon, some type of mobile rift and or well, and this one, which is the idea that you can Thor your hammer back to your hand. In other words, when you throw your mini throwing hammer, you can press the button again and have it come back to you. It's actually been an idea featured many, many times, but not only because it's random, but because this idea did it such an interesting way, I wouldn't be upset with featuring this idea just in a normal video. This is the Sunbreaker's Call. It increases your maximum possible stacks of roaring flames, and then when you press the melee button again while you're somewhat near your throwing hammer, it will hurl it back towards you, and that hammer coming back can deal damage to enemies in the line of it coming back to you. The increasing stacks of Roaring Flames is a genius addition to an exotic like this, because like I said, I have seen so many different takes on the whole Mjolnir thing, where you can call the hammer back and I'm right there with you. I think that'd be a lot of fun. I don't know why Bungie's not doing it. Maybe it's a technical reason, or maybe they have like a design idea that they're trying to avoid, or whatever it may be. But the increasing of the maximum possible stacks of Roaring Flames is a genius idea for this, because you're going to be able to get your hammer back more often. You're going to be able to get Roaring Flame stacks up higher and more frequently, and it's going to increase your damage, making this thing a very, very viable option in in-game play, as well as being something that can possibly one-shot Guardians in PvP after like the 4th or 5th kill. All in all, makes for a quite solid exotic idea for the Titans. I genuinely like it a lot. Like, again, I've seen this idea several different times, but I think this is the best iteration of it. You should be proud. You got picked at random and your idea was fantastic. But anyway, which do you prefer? Let me know in the comments. Do you prefer when I do it at random, or do you prefer when I pick the exotic ideas? I'm, again, genuinely looking for feedback. I'm not just trying to farm engagement. But if I was trying to farm engagement, I'd tell you to like and subscribe. Alrighty, y'all. Bless your faces and deuces.